We can make things. And did it hurt that people like Clint Eastwood, and by the way, Gran Torino is his highest grossing movie ever. Ever. He's 80 years old. He's had a long career, folks. Made in Michigan. When people like Clint Eastwood say, this is a great place to do business, people in Michigan were proud. Did we change our image in the country and the world? Yes, we did. Our first primetime network TV show, Detroit 187 for ABC, premiered last September. At the end of August, Wall Street Journal came out and did a story. I dare say it was the first positive story that the Wall Street Journal had done about Detroit in, like forever. Motown becomes Movie Town. And because the Wall Street Journal did a positive article, within 48 hours, NBC's Today Show was here doing a positive story, followed by the NBC Evening News. Carrie Jones, the director of Michigan Film Office, was, now all over national TV, talking about the great things happening in Michigan. I found myself being interviewed by many national publications. Friends would say, I heard you on BBC, or read about you in Paris, in Le Monde. And then I got this article with a picture of Detroit, one of my favorites, that was from Japan's leading newspaper with a subscription of 14 million people. It's crazy. Detroit, great things. Couldn't read the Japanese, but it was positive. So, what went wrong? I say we're victims of our own success. We're very high profile. So the question became, because we rose so fast, is it worth the cost? Now the second question, should there be any incentives in the state of Michigan, is a different question. If you are philosophically opposed to the ideas of incentives, if you believe government should in no way be in the business of picking winners and losers, and you're going to get rid of all incentives, then the numbers don't matter, folks. That's what it is. That's a philosophical position. I respect it, but I don't agree with it. Incentives are as old as America. We might get rid of them, but they will come back. I do think they're very durable for ways of states of doing business. I'm no economist. I'm not going to argue that question. But on the question of is it worth the cost? Well, let's look at the numbers. I know these numbers because I was asked to testify before Senator Nancy Cassis's committee after the Senate Fiscal Agency report came out last November that said that the return on investment for every incentive dollar we paid out, we got 17.5%, 17.5 cents back into the state treasury. Well, not a good number. But to be fair, that's not the standard we passed this law on. Nobody ever, when we proposed this law, said that what you really want to look at is what's coming right back to the state treasury. We talked about economic impact, about the multiplier, about the ripple effect. Why? Because we had done our homework and studied other states. Our model was Louisiana, which was the state-of-the-art program they had built since the early 2000s. Or in 2002, the state-of-the-art program outside of Hollywood and New York, Louisiana. We wanted to copy a state that worked, not the states that failed. And we succeeded because that was our model. Now, what are the numbers that we look at? Well, what we first said was, you've got to wait 5 years before you do a study to be fair. It's like any business. Even if the law isn't perfect, give it 5 years and let's see where we are. We were led to believe that's what we were going to have. Turns out we didn't have quite 3, but we did get a study in the time, the Ernst & Young study. The reason I picked 5 years is because Bobby Jindal picked 5 years when he became governor of Louisiana. And by the way, Governor Jindal's study, after 5 years, Louisiana had in 2007. By the way, Governor Jindal was not governor when that law, incentive law, was passed. It was his good fortune to be elected 5 years after that law took place. So he did a 5-year study. Numbers: 429 million in production in Louisiana, economic impact of 763 million. At that point, Governor Jindal said, these are permanent, folks. Okay. So, Ernst & Young study came back and said roughly $6 of economic impact for every incentive dollar spent. And you know what? Those numbers, you can't dispute those numbers either. But the weird thing is, both those numbers are pretty damn close to being right. Now, there's certain things we object to in the Senate Fiscal Agency report. I mean, it doesn't count per diems. People who come in and work on a Hollywood film or a show, they're given $100 a day per diem. That's some $42 million in Hollywood per diems. There's no incentive money goes towards per diems. That's $42 million that goes right into the restaurants and the dry cleaners and the stores of Michigan that gets spent here. But that doesn't count. They look at our figures and they say there's certain things that they wouldn't count. But by and large, economists who have done these studies say ROI, it's pretty close, and consistently across the country with programs that work, like Louisiana, it's about 6-to-1 in return. There's a California study that came out today on their incentive law that says they're getting back $20 on every dollar they spent incentives. That looks a little high to me, but God bless them if it's true. What we can't do with these numbers, when I talk about the multiplier effect, I'm clearly talking about those Grand Rapids hotels, or the 50,000 hotel room nights in Detroit last summer, or the 60,000 that will be taken in Pontiac and Troy by Oz the Great and Powerful. What I'm talking about are the hotels who hire people instead of laying them off. I'm talking about the restaurants that are filled. I'm talking about the rental cars that are taken. I'm talking about the accountants who are getting work, the caterers, the security guard companies that have been saved by this. I mean, this is beyond the crews folks that work on movies. I'm talking about the travel agents. I'm talking about the trash haulers. I'm talking about the people who supply the porta potties. You never think of these people. And then I'm talking about the people who don't even get anywhere near an incentive, but they benefit from it. If I'm a young actor in Detroit, I've got to go get headshots made. So a photographer who does headshots, their businesses were booming because the spin-off is endless. I talk to senior citizens who serve as extras, make a couple $100 in a day, immediately go to the mall and buy their grandchildren gifts with it. That's the multiplier effect. One thing we can't do is we cannot pretend, and this is the one, if there's one thing that irritates me, it's to pretend in the state of Michigan for political purposes that this is about Hollywood liberals versus fiscal conservatives. You can make any argument, but you are not allowed to make that one. Why? Bobby Jindal is not a liberal, folks. He's a fiscal conservative. He's earned that reputation. He kept his program after Katrina, after the Gulf oil spill. Why? Because he wanted to give money to Hollywood? No, folks. He kept it because it was good for his state and its economy, and it created jobs. Nathan Deal, the Republican governor of Georgia, when he was in the House of Representatives, he led the fight against Obamacare. Now he's leading one of the most aggressive film programs in the country. Tom Corbett, governor of Pennsylvania, Republican, fiscal conservative. You know what he did when in February we decided we wanted to curb this thing? He stole Batman from us. Batman flew to Pittsburgh. Governor John Kasich of Ohio, no liberal there. What did he do? He stole the Avengers from us, and he bragged. I got another one from Michigan. Governor Gary Herbert, Utah. Nobody's ever accused him of being a liberal. They are going full speed aggressive to get the film business. Our model was Louisiana. Now where are we? We were had Louisiana in our sights. They are a $500 million a year industry, steady. Did we hurt them? We did not. Why? Because we had a better incentive, but they were proven. They've been there more than 5 years. They've got enough crews. They built infrastructure. They did everything they needed to do. Michigan could not handle all the film and television production there is. There's only so much that any state can do. It's that 7-crew thing, and then beyond that, you have to import. It's like water. It sort of finds its own level. You can be that $500 million a year industry. What do you get from that? Well, we get that reversal of brain drain. We get crews that we've trained who stay home. We get thriving businesses. And what will we get now? We will get the worst of all possible worlds. We spent the last 3 years having Hollywood train our people, building up our crew base. Now they're good. We got great carpenters and sculptors building Oz. You think they're going to stay here if there's no business? They're going to Louisiana or Georgia or Ohio. We've used our incentive money to create taxpayers to leave. And guess what? Those students we've trained who believed in it and stayed home for 3 straight years, this is the first year that they're moving out again because they believe it's over. And I can't tell them they're wrong. The bus is on its way to California. Our best and brightest are leaving us again. At the end of the last term, in Angel Hall, Auditorium A, many of you are familiar with that, I had Mitch Albom come in and speak to my students. There was about 100 different writing and production students there that night. At the end, he asked, how many of you are planning on staying in Michigan? I lowered my head because I knew the answer. No hands went up. I had spoken to the law school and to the business school, those who were interested in what was going on in the incentives. The business school, there were some 75 people. How many of you are interested in staying? One hand went up. If we kept our incentive law, how many of you would stay? Over half. Why? Why the same in the law school? Because the film industry is different, and television and digital media is different. If you create a creative class and incitement in cities that is hip and young and cutting edge and creative, people in other fields will stay. In fashion, in accounting, in law, in other forms of businesses. Young people go where the action is. Go to Chicago, you'll see it. Go to Los Angeles, go to New York, you'll see it. Go to Detroit, you won't, but you were. Last summer, you were. This summer, packing up and leaving. We were there, folks. We were building it. We were becoming that exciting place. Infrastructure of studios is important. But what I've learned about this, the most important infrastructure is the infrastructure of talent. If you don't keep those young people home, you are giving away your future. We have sent to Hollywood people like Bob Shea, founder and CEO of New Line Cinema, little movies like Lord of the Rings. Peter Benedict, founder of United Talent Agency, clients little shows like The Sopranos and the Coen Brothers and on and on and on. Yes, I'm a client of United Talent Agency. Peter's a great supporter of our program. Bobby Kotick, CEO, founder of Activision Blizzard. Little games, Guitar Hero. Others from Michigan State, like Bill Mechanic, CEO of Fox Worldwide Studios until recently. Jerry Bruckheimer, another young Detroiter who is, come on, Pirates of the Caribbean, every form, flavor of CSI under the sun. We send away these people. But who else goes? What other young graduates? How about Larry Page, co-founder of Google? Larry graduated. There had been some excitement going on